rong sát tại tòa ý trồng là chỉ cứ tiên đi trang hai ý trồng phong hiệu xuất lời cái mấy tiền lùm sai cũ nhà trụ hữu hải mông TV đợt nội cũ giờ thông nhị hở hà số sự tờ nhớ trong trong sinh phò sinh Minnesota nhớ mấy cả tết chờ nụ nô cũng một lúc sẽ hở cái lùm một cổng dù Senator phòng hở hà Senator Ramsey Paul ở từ lúc cổng trồng cứ khá bê sinh nhớ trong sinh Minnesota nó dù kế chạy cho măng giờ lên đó cho lù cái bê giờ nông cho tận đây nó giờ lù mấy cả đầu chờ bê xuất lời một sai tàu khá chú chạy cho măng nhớ trong lúc sinh Minnesota tàu trở chơi luôn đó new fashion has simple online.
I will conduct this meeting predominantly in English, but I will accommodate and translate anybody that speak Hmong, Lao, or Thai. Those are the three languages that I know. And nhớ rằng số 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 tu cái méto nó khá chỗ của tại bên mỏ sáng bảo rằng của tôi chỉ nửa hay tại bây giờ tôi chống bảo lên nó ha. Của chỗ sáng tại đây có tại lên tên đó chứ đây cái mong TV nó mà lên trang tại chỗ số tại chỉ trong sáng cái méto nó khá tao bây giờ họ khá tao bây giờ họ cứ của ôi bên nó do là ha họ cú sáng mấy cú sáng bảo lên tại bên mà trả kế lúc ban chỗ mấy chỗ yang tại đây. And I want to also thank our media, the Hmong HBC TV, the Hmong TV Network, and Bali Talk Show, Twin City News. And also I want to thank Mr. Txugtxuj for bringing audio, his home audio studio, Mr. Txugtxuj. Why don't we give them a round of applause, right? And, but I want to shift all the attention to our guest today. Your state senator of the East Side St. Paul. I contribute to passing the law on legalized cannabis. But folks that are next to me here work hard on the issue. And mainly all credit go to the leadership of Senator Lindsay Port. She's here tonight. She's from Burnsville, Minnesota. At the same time, she's also a friend of the Hmong community. Her history goes back to Madison, Wisconsin. She born and raised in South Dakota, but her adult life has been in Madison, Wisconsin. So in terms of, she's also very familiar with the Hmong community, and we have great conversation. We have a connection of friends too in the legislation in Wisconsin legislature. We know each other. So thank you, Senator Lindsay Port, for being here. And she's the chief author of the bill, and I will pass the mic to her, talk a little bit about some of the equity portion of the bill. I will not go detail and explain it, but later I can translate to those of you who may not be clear, and I can reiterate that to everyone. So our also guest here with us is Maron Melican, Director of Outreach from the Office of Cannabis Management, right here. And they're the one that will set the rule. They're the one that will implement the tax that we pass in legislature, and perhaps licensing too, right? Yeah. So this is the reason I want you to connect, because I can only do so much as it sticks, and we're make law. We're not the one that's gonna work with you on the details. So that's why I invite them here. Thank you for making the time. Also, maybe later, Sophia Linenger, Director of Government Relations, will be here with us too. And Charlene Breiner, Director of the Office of Cannabis Management, will be here as well. And then we also have Department, let me go down to Department of Agriculture. We have the Commissioner himself, Tom Peterson, a good friend, is here. And let's see, Anthony Cotile, Section Management, he would be talking about hemp production and hemp growing and the difference between hemp and cannabis. And then we are expecting to have a presenter from Department of Employment Economic Development, Nathan Radner. When he's here, just come right on and speak. So he can talk to you about the grant that's available to you. I'm sure when Senator Port talk about the legislation, she will probably gonna talk more detail about the funding, the equity portion, the grant and such. So thank you all for coming, and I want to pass the mic here to Senator Pork, and then later on I want ample time for you to ask questions and ask us harder questions. Earlier, as I walk around and talk to people, one person said, what if I apply for license, or if I run into any difficulty, who should I call? I said, you can always call back to me if you run into a problem, because we will change the law to accommodate you. That's what makes this country wonderful and help new Americans like ourselves to be successful. So I'm going to pass the mic to Lindsay Porter. Let's give her a round of applause to be here.
Hi everyone, I am Lindsay Port. Really, thank you very much, Vaughn, for inviting me into your community to talk about this. I am really honored to have been the Senate author of the cannabis legalization bill, mostly because as the chief author, I was able to make sure that our two main priorities stayed at the center of this bill all through a very lengthy and complicated process of passing the law. And those two main components were, one, to begin to undo the harm that had been done to communities through prohibition, particularly communities of color, with ensuring that expungement was not just the center of the law, but that we were the first state to make expungement automatic. So folks did not have to figure out how to do it, but for most low-level offenses, it automatically happens to start rolling back some of that harm that the state has done through prohibition. The second piece was that as we set up an industry, we wanted to ensure that social equity was at the center of it. And we're not the first state to try to do that. As we've had the, I guess, pleasure of learning from the other states who came before us, a lot of them have tried to put social equity at the center of their laws, but not many have been very successful at actually achieving equitable outcomes. And so as we wrote the law, as we're continuing to look at implementing the law, we're continuing to think through all of the implications that different rules have, that different timings have, to ensure that community, really community-driven engagement in this industry is what leads us here in Minnesota.
New fashion giờ tới bốn khó chơi và mùa khó giờ tao rong chập lờ. Bé mùa cho chua họ khó giờ. Giờ các xã tao chỉ khó giờ và rong theo họ các lũ trẻ tua đầu tỷ new fashion. Bé khó chơi giờ do đầu tỷ cho cái University Avenue West. Thế kẹt. Bé tụi xã tao giờ trâu chí y, ở chỗ y xả chí. Trâu chí y, ở chỗ y xả chí. Và trâu đâu.
We also have a Can Grow grant program specifically for communities of color, for new farmers, new American farmers who are interested in getting into the cannabis industry, to help with things like both learning the industry and the types of equipment that you will need, but also making those first investments in land or equipment, things like that. It's going to be a really critical program because we will need cultivation to get up and running pretty quickly. We also have a Can Renew program. This is the program I'm most excited about. I sort of thought we would have a lot of difficulty passing this through the legislature, but no one ever asked me about it, and that was fine. I was happy to just let it keep going until the end. And really what it is an ongoing, starting in year 2027, $20 million a year investment into communities. And those communities can come together and put up an idea. It does not have to be cannabis related. It's really, what does your community need? What are the investments that you need to be able to thrive as a community? And it is an ongoing, in perpetuity, the program never ends, $20 million a year investment back into community to make sure that as this industry is setting up, you all have a voice in how the revenue that comes in from this industry is spent, and that it's actually spent in your communities. And so we've had some great work. Senator Susan Pah has worked with me on that, and making sure that there's also a youth engagement portion of that so that we're investing in our next generation. I could talk about this all night long. I won't, because I know people who have answers to questions are here for you. But I just want to say thank you so much for your interest and for coming out. We cannot make this successful if it's one-way conversation. We can only make this successful if we do it in partnership. My office door is always open. I'm just down the hallway from Senator Her. We cannot wait to stay in community with you, and if you'll have me, I'd love to come back this summer and do this again as we continue to learn more information, make sure that we are working together as community. Thank you so, so much. Oh yes, one other thing, and I'll let Sophie, who just walked in here, probably dig into this a little earlier, but the one piece that we are completely set on with the program, with the licensing, is that social equity applicants, people from communities of color, communities that have been more harmed, new Americans, are able to not only get their own sort of licensing pool, but they will get first mover access, so those licenses will go out earlier than the general licenses. We want to make sure that not only do social equity applicants have access, but that you have early access to get in, get your businesses set up, and help drive the industry in Minnesota.
Thank you. Good kind of talk to Senator Lindsay Porter. I'm gonna just sum up what she said here in Hmong. Nito hamiji tại social equity nó thì cho khuôn sợi nhỉ na, thì bố sáng bố có sai của một cái danh tiền của cho nhau cho khuôn sợi nhỉ tàu license ổn định cho bank bạc nữa mà, thì cho khuôn sợi nhỉ thì trong này sai vào nó bên Minneapolis hoặc Frogtown thì nó mỗi họ nhận từ số là bao, sau này nito họ training grant program. Nó thì cho non-profit, nhưng mà một công hồ là thì dùng mấy chỗ nhà tôi cho mẹ apply tao cho khá tôi này cho mang hát nữa, thì cho bao này thì nói một chỗ cho công hồ là cho nên lúc khá mẹ lúc làm lộ, sau đó nếu một có can grow program nên chỉ lúc bán mình cho cứ ô làm lộ nó có ô của do hát, nếu một can renew hát là thì can renew program là thì cho federal những mô lên thì có phang mình lên cho lộ. Bán chủ cho khuôn cứ chọn nhẹ chi tên mình luôn là tên nó luôn là cái cho mang nó xí mang tên là chỉ cho luôn chắc luôn hà lên nó sẽ bị ổn định trong cái to cho bị tham nó. Next I'm gonna pass the Office of Cannabis Management, Sophia.
If you want to be successful but you don't want to spend any money, then you have come to the right place. Simple Online will share 70% of Alibaba, Amazon, eBay, Facebook, Google, and YouTube's income with you for free. How can we get their money and share it with you? Absolutely, we cannot steal their money. But what if we can take their users, like buyers, sellers, and advertisers? Does that mean yes, we can take their money and share it with you? SimpleOnline.com is a site that combines all search engine, social media, e-commerce, and many others, like advertising, books, courses, engine, estate, karaoke, movies, music, travel buddy, travel location, and many others. You can search for web, video, people, image, info, live, wholesale, and shopping. You can sell live, offer live, and auction live. And every time you and your team sign up, sell something, purchase something, advertise something, or post something to their social media journal, you'll make money from it. We are the best opportunities of the 21st century and will build legacies for you. Join us by using the following referral ID who's sharing this video with you. SimpleOnline.com.
And I'm actually going to have my colleague Marone go first, and then I'll go second, but we're both here from the Office of Cannabis Management. And
Hi everyone, my name is Maron Melican. I'm the Director of Outreach here at the Office of Cannabis Management, and I just want to first by thanking you guys all for being here. I think that this is very telling of the role that I play, is being able to actually be in community, speak with real people that essentially, like, this bill, I would say, was really intended for, right? When they talk about the reparations or repairing harm within communities that were over-policed or that were historically harmed because of cannabis prohibition, oftentimes it looks like a lot of communities like ours. And so being able to be here within community, this is my neighborhood, I'm from the east side, and so it feels good, it feels like home, and I'm just grateful that I'm able to be in front of you guys today. Just to kind of get us started, I was hoping to just talk a little bit about like who we are at the Office of Cannabis Management and how we got here. I think Senator Port did a great job of really talking about the legislation and how honestly incredible it was to pass something like this. We're not the first state. We have so many to learn from, but I want to say that we're going to do it best so far. And I think that all the folks that are with me here today, really value and really walk within equity. And I want to say from the Office of Cannabis Management, so many of our decisions are really centered in that and wanting to make sure that we're not veering away from that. We really move with what the intention was of the bill, and we're thinking of those people with every decision that we're making. And so just to share a little bit of who the office is specifically, we essentially are the chief regulatory office for adult use cannabis across the state. And so we are the ones that are basically implementing the bill that was put in place. We're the ones that are building the infrastructure for licensing and the regulations. We are looking at all of the pieces that were from the bill that were essentially designated to rules and essentially launching the rulemaking process. And just to kind of explain a little bit about what rulemaking is, I think my easiest way of explaining it is it's really the teeth of the bill. Like, the bill had so much incredible information in it, but then you have to think about how do you actually implement this? And what are the rules and the protocols that people have to follow in order to actually participate in the industry? Whether it is the labeling and the packaging, whether it's around like how they in fact like plant the seeds. Like, you'll hear from my colleagues that this is not an easy industry, and I'm sure many of you know this as well. Like, it is, it comes with a lot of costs, and it comes with a lot of just like being essentially very careful and making sure that, you know, we are doing it right. Because when you think of cannabis, it comes in many forms, but for some people it's medicine. And so it's something that they're putting inside their bodies. For others, you know, they consume it in different ways. And so as a result of that, Minnesota, just like many of the other states, is really committed to doing it right and making sure that we are launching a very safe market just as much as we're doing it equitably. And just as much as we're doing it so that it's really supporting the folks that we think that it was intended to really support. I'll say one last thing about the bill itself. One thing that I loved is that it was very, I'd say, catered to like how do we think about Minnesota-grown folks? Like, how do we think about the folks that are here, the small businesses, the farmers? How do we make sure that they have an advantage within this system? And I think that that's the way that we move at the Office of Cannabis Management in all of the decision making that we're doing as well, is recognizing that there are people here that are very qualified, that can lift this and that can enter this industry, and why don't we give them a chance? And so it's very exciting to be able to start something new. But to share a little bit just about the law, because I think it's also helpful when it comes to just the context around cannabis, is effective of August 1st of 2023, essentially it was the full decriminalization, which essentially allows the possession, use, and home grow of cannabis for people that are over the age of 21. Oftentimes I hear within community, it's folks saying, oh, adult use cannabis is legalized. That means that anybody can use it. Folks often even think that, oh, I'm over 18, I can participate. Very much so not the case. It's very clear that it is designated for folks that choose to use it being 21 and older. And so I think it's important to call that out, because just as much excitement as there is also concern from different folks, and being able to kind of address that from our side as well, and recognize that there are state agencies that are working to ensure that we are protecting youth and children, making sure that we are thinking about how do we ensure that the use isn't making its way into schools and such, and so it's kind of a catch-all of making sure that as we stand up this industry and that we are repairing harm within communities and that we are finding opportunities for people to gain generational wealth, that we're also protecting our children and our youth and people that could essentially be vulnerable to cannabis as well. Within the law, it does say that you are able to use, possess, and transport cannabis paraphernalia. So that's kind of, I think, examples of that could be like the items that you see related to cannabis, such as like the tools and such. You can transport, or you can possess or transport up to 2 ounces of cannabis flower in a public space. You can possess up to 2 pounds of cannabis flower in a person's private residence. And so really being able to kind of understand what do those look like, while the law did say that adult use cannabis is now legalized, it's also very important to know what can I have at certain points in times and what can I not, what can I be carrying with me, because even with this, we still have to protect ourselves and make sure we're protecting community along the way. I think another piece, because I know that there is a lot of interest when it comes to the home grow of cannabis, right? There are a number of people that have already entered into that industry, and one thing to just be aware is that we do allow for the home grow of cannabis. However, it's of course a person that is over the age of 21, but they can grow up to 8 cannabis plants with no more than 4 of those plants being mature flowering plants. The other thing to just keep in mind is that it has to be in an enclosed space. So it can't be something that, like, you know, your neighbor across can just be able to take a look at. And so recognizing that there are a lot of complexities with that too. I think it's important to always know that, you know, we don't want young people to have access to it because, you know, it's essentially it's not meant for them, and we don't want that it entering into their bodies at such a young age. And so really looking at like that idea of it being in an enclosed space is really a safety mechanism. And so I think that's just kind of an important theme when we think about OCM and this entire industry, is thinking just as much as we want people to benefit from this, we want to make sure that they're doing it safe and that they are and doing it essentially efficiently. There are also a number of questions about, you know, where can I use cannabis and where can I not? So again, it can be used by people that are 21 and older on private property. However, things to always keep in mind is thinking about, you know, if you are living in a multi-unit home, you know, that comes with its own circumstances, or apartments and such. Many apartments have restrictions that are put on whether, you know, people can participate in that. It's also recognizing that, you know, even within the confines of like an apartment, there are other folks that also live in that space. And so also things to keep in mind that I think is really helpful for people to know is that it can't be used when operating a motor vehicle. So folks driving and consuming is, you know, still something that is prohibited. And then thinking about it when, you know, in the workplace as well, it's not something that can be consumed when operating heavy machinery. Even when thinking about like our school buses and such, people that are taking our children to and from school are also folks that are not able to be consuming. And so just recognizing, and I could go into full detail about all of those different pieces, but I'd rather kind of be able to share that with you guys afterwards, and just defer you to our website that has it very clearly outlined. But I think ultimately it's recognizing that with the legalization of adult use cannabis, there are still limitations to it, and we want to make sure that people know those just as they're entering this industry and if they're choosing to partake in it as well. I think I will maybe pause there just to kind of talk about a little bit maybe about our legislative side of things and some of the proposals. I think Senator Port talked a little bit about where we stand around equity and some of the things that we held because of equity, and I think it's just a true testament to what our office believes in. So maybe I'll kick it over to Sophie to speak.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Sophie Leininger, and I work as the Government Relations Director with the Office of Cannabis Management. And so in partnership with Marone, we have been trying to get into many rooms like this as possible, because as a new state agency, maybe you are all familiar with our other state agency friends who are up here and the over 20, but we are a new state agency, which means we're also strengthening and increasing our number of staff, because we do want to be under Maroon's direction and our outreach team. We want to be accessible to Minnesotans, and just like Senator Port said, dialogue with state government and with community absolutely matters. And
ดูแฟชั่นอย่าไปมองเขาเจอว่าหมวกเขาเยอะต่อรองชับเลยไปหมวกชัวร์เขาเขาเยอะอย่าก็สาวตัวจะเขาเยอะว่ารองเที่ยวเขาก็รู้เจตัวตัวติดดูแฟชั่นไปเขาจะย่ออย่าย่อตัวติดสักเกย์ University Avenue West เที่ยวแคมป์ไปตัวสาวตัวอย่าเจ้าชี้อีอ้อจ่ออี下จี้เจ้าชี้อีอ้อจ่ออี下จี้我找到
And so our legislative recommendations and our bill that's currently moving through the Senate and has passed off the House floor so far does that. It creates a mechanism for us to move social equity applicants first. It also recommends a proposal in which we change the ownership requirement for social equity applicants. Currently in law, it requires 100% ownership. We, knowing that this industry is capital intensive, it requires a high level of capital in some instances to operate. We also want to ensure that folks under social equity status have the same opportunity to partner with people that people not in that status do. Well, so we move the ownership requirement from 100% to 65%. So still maintaining a high threshold of ownership and control. I think the national average is somewhere from 51 to 55, so staying higher than that to maintain the intent, but still allowing space for partnerships and deals, and to not allow and not to limit social equity applicants in that way. Similarly, currently a applicant would be required to have property secured upon time of application. What we have learned from other states is sometimes that poses a real risk to applicants, and a way of requiring that at time of application with no assurance that we move to a license. That's a big financial risk to take on a property, and so instead requiring that later down in the application line. So not requiring it at the start to not have folks have that take on that risk with no assurance of that license as we move through the process, and instead later down. So those are two examples of recommendations that we believe move us in a way that makes it closer to the goals and intent of how we can move it forward. But I will say, as any good bill on the floor, it's not law until it's off the floor. So seemingly as we end near session, and I'm sure Senator Qha will help us with this, we also want to be very clear in how we come out of this session with what is law. Maybe we heard in the news certain bills were proposed or certain things, and so we want to be clear in our outreach of what actually comes out of session, what is in the law, what is the system we will be implementing. And similarly, as we come out of this legislative session in the next few weeks, I think it will also help us get clearer on more information about when we are going to be open for applications and how we move through that process. And then similarly, as an agency, I know it's early and Senator Qha is probably going to laugh, but as we prepare for next session, agencies in the summer and in the fall also really want to prioritize engagement with folks like yourselves and rooms and tables across Minnesota about what are other priorities heading into the next session. And so continuing the conversation, and maybe you're not interested in a license, but you're interested in the community renewal grants that Senator Port mentioned, or maybe you're interested in education and outreach related to youth and prevention and substance use prevention. So I think there's many ways and levels that we can focus on too, and as an agency we want to be responsive to that and be good partners with our other agencies. So that is there is quite a bit more in the bill that we're happy to cover later, or ask questions or answer questions about, and also happy to share to where more of a status of where we're at, but I'm sure Senator Qha can help us all with that too as we move through.
Well, thank you Sophia, thank you Maroon for your presentation. I'm going to sum it up in Hmong, and I do have a little question, prompt question, a little advice, a suggestion for you too. In Hmong, Hmong BG 不都喊到，但是我们还用意是 tại ít tuổi này là để bố càng là ounce họ là ít lúc chế là để bố cái giá là pound họ là mới mua license cứ bây giờจะ transfer nó để thon mà chúng mình mà sai cho lại số chạy ít lúc chế thì để bố cho lại gì cho ha block cho là để của block cho lưu cho lưu ở tập bằng bố cho chạy nó ha cứ họ cứ tại chụp pi nó thì cái license nó thì lưu summer nóจะเป็นมาโอเคใจใช่ไหมจังแต่สุดท้ายเรามาช่างต่างฮะ
Thank you, Senator Her. It's a great pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Nathan Ratner. I'm in the Office of Government Relations at the Department of Employment and Economic Development. I'd also like to acknowledge my colleague, Haopei Lee, who is also at the Department of Employment and Economic Development and is a great resource. I am here because I am coordinating the development of 3 grant programs that are housed and that we will administer at the Department of Employment and Economic Development, or as we call it, DEED. They are the Can Navigate program, which will offer grants to provide technical assistance to help applicants navigate all of the elements related to launching a cannabis business. Can Startup, which is a grant program that will offer relatively small loans to micro businesses in the legal cannabis industry, and Can Train, which will offer grants to organizations to do workforce training within the cannabis industry, as well as scholarships to individuals to participate in workforce training programs to enter the cannabis industry. We are also collaborating with the Department of Agriculture as well as the Office of Cannabis Management on a 4th program called Can Grow, which is very interesting in that it is for existing farmers who are interested in entering the cannabis industry to receive both technical assistance as well as small loans to support that transition. We are developing each of these programs with an emphasis on social equity and on supporting small business development. We operate with the similar principle as the Office of Cannabis Management in that we want to see those communities who were disproportionately harmed by cannabis prohibition receive disproportionate support in entering the legal cannabis industry. We also recognize that there are communities that have been harmed in other ways that also deserve a unique opportunity to enter and thrive in this industry. In terms of how we are developing these programs, we are doing it in a way that is as community and industry informed as possible. And so you're hearing it first on May 6th, a week from Monday. We are releasing what's called a request for information, which is an online survey that tackles everything from lenders to small business to people interested in working in the cannabis industry and asks questions related to what do you want to see, what is important, what are the barriers that you are encountering or think that you will encounter in entering the cannabis industry. We will then take all of that information and incorporate it into the programs themselves so that they are as impactful and directly beneficial to those who are entering the industry, especially those who qualify as social equity applicants, as they possibly can be. There is a significant, though relatively small amount of money appropriated to each of these programs. So there is $6 million appropriated to the Can Startup program, which offers loans to micro businesses, which are a particular type of retailer or dispensary business. Those can be for up to $50,000 per business or up to $150,000 if you have a private match. So if you have $150,000 of capital, you can get $150,000 from a loan through this program. Otherwise, you can get up to $50,000 with no need for a match. For the Can Navigate program, that is $2 million over the next couple of years. And that will go to organizations that can be nonprofits, that can be for-profits, who will help small business and entrepreneurs navigate all of the different elements, from how do you apply for a cannabis license, to how do I get lending, how do I meet all of the regulatory burdens in terms of product safety, in terms of security and finance and banking related and insurance. All these different very complex elements that exist specifically within this industry, this grant is designed to provide support for. The CAN Train grant, so the Workforce Development Program, has $4 million appropriated to it, $2 million this year and $2 million next year. And so so those will offer grants, as I mentioned, to nonprofits, for-profits that are going to provide the training programs to enter the workforce. This could be in cultivation, this could be in doing science related to testing, to manufacturing, and it will offer up to $20,000 per individual to enter and complete a training program. Those could be at a Minnesota State school. There's a number that are offering programs, or those could be through other types of organizations as well. Those $20,000 scholarships will be offered by lottery. So it's not going to be individual by individual. It's going to be selected, and this is to maximize fairness in terms of who gets them. Can Grow is very similar, and again, this is an emphasis on folks who are already farming. And I know within the Hmong community, agriculture is very important, and there's some incredibly skilled farmers. And so this is a grant program that may, interest folks in this community and even more than maybe some others. And so again, we are working in collaboration with our partner agencies to get that one off the ground and make it as impactful as possible. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I have cards. I'll be here through the whole night. But again, I want to emphasize how important this request for information is that will be released a week from Monday. We'll work through Senator Her's office to make sure it gets to everybody, and that the responses that we receive to this survey are going to structure all of these programs. Marone mentioned rulemaking. This is basically what we are doing for each of these grant programs. We know what they are for, but in terms of how we focus them and how we ensure that this money goes to creating as much impact in your community and other communities as possible will be determined by what we hear on this survey, on the request for information. So with that, I can turn it over to Senator Her to provide clarity, and then my colleagues at the Department of Agriculture.
Thank you. Let me sum it up in Hmong, just in case. So Nathan, nơi hát chọn trả lời tình cho hát đã một grant cho số lại những mô hát chọn long này giờ ta cứ mấy ở tại nhà họ mới khó lang lộ để bố mô gặp long program để chỉ chọn cho ilu lang lộ thon ở giờ ta mấy mô match để bố cảm giải mấy cho nhà cho mấy lấy ý bộ chỉ chọn phẳng mà. And Nathan, are those forgivable loan or is it just straight loan?
Those are straight loans, but again, that is a question that we are going to work with. Many, I can't guarantee for this, but many of the loan programs we have do have a portion that is forgivable, and so that's something that we will explore, but that we don't know yet.
Now let's have our commissioner, Tom Peterson.
Well, thank you, Senator, and it's really an honor to be here tonight. And thank you all for coming out here on a Friday night, and it just shows the interest in this, and I appreciate the invitation from Senator Her. I've been able to work with him for many years. He actually served on the Agriculture Committee for many years and was a great partner, and he'd always talk about how much agriculture and how much farming there is in his area and how it's in the culture, as you've heard, and everything. And so we've tried to build programs in our department that support that. And so we, in supporting the work of the Office of Cannabis Management, I always want people in this room and others to know that we have lots of other loans and grants too. And so, and I can share that link with you, but if you ever just go to our website or you Google Minnesota Department of Agriculture loans and grants, you'll get a list of about 35 different programs that might work for you where some of these other ones might not. We have things like a beginning, not that you need a loan, but a beginning farmer loan. We have a down payment assistance if you're looking to buy a farm. We have a beginning farmer tax credit if you're buying a farm from somebody else. We have also equipment grants. We do food grants through like farm to school if you're a vegetable farmer or something selling to that. But I always want people to know about those things that we have. We also, as commissioners, started that an Office of Emerging Farmers, so that we're helping people that, the average farmer in Minnesota, when you look at the majority, look like me, right? White, middle-aged, mid-50-year-old. I live in Pine City is where my farm is. But Minnesota is changing a lot. Our demographics are changing. And so we want to be sure that we're serving all communities, that people that want to get into all types of farming. And so we have an office. So if you have questions and you just don't understand it or you need help, you can call that emerging farmer office and they'll help you. And so I'll get that number and information to the senator. And one of the pieces, that the senator's been very, insistent on, and that's something that we're working on too, is our outreach to the Hmong community is very important. And so how do we, continue to work on that? And so I'm going to introduce if it's all right, Senator, I'm going to introduce Senator He's a manager. He does all the work at the department on this issue. But I'm really here to listen, to hear your questions and your thoughts, because that really helps me and all of us do our job. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Senator. Thank you all for having us. I also have done my time over here as an East Sider, living on both sides of Conway Recreational Center. So it's good to be here tonight and spend time with you. My name is Anthony Cordelet, and I oversee the hemp program, amongst one of the many programs I oversee, which we started back in 2014. And so we've had many Hmong farmers grow hemp in Minnesota already, and there are still a fair amount that are licensed to grow hemp in Minnesota, I'm happy to say. I want to clear up some information for you that might be fairly confusing. What is cannabis? It's many things. You have a plant called Cannabis sativa, and many people refer to it as cannabis. However, it has legal definitions now, and not only does it have legal definitions within the state of Minnesota that define it differently, it has a legal definition at the
Saya itu tining umunya, tashi ka chumunya ngepeng. Simple online yo mumua sha chao pheng pua. Cho hao Alibaba, Amazon, eBay, Facebook, Google, Tia YouTube, cho là phai cho có đái sư. Yo walicha thi li mumua tao cho nhia cho là phai cho có. Khó chính tia, cái mumua chỉ tao cho nhia. Tashi yo pe shi tao le tu user ne. Xử lý cho ô tô mua khủng, cho tua cha tới la lùa. Pe yo mu phai tao le cho cho lọ trâu co, xử lý cho ô tô mua khủng, cho tua cho tới la lụa, mua chế, kế hung gạo, say mò vị, nông gạo, gì tế chia ô xì, nên mua bánh sử lon chia tàu đua video, mua khủng live, lò nhọn gây live, thia từ khủng live, xung rau ô có lọ mua khủng, lò cho ý đây video ô rong rong nhé trâu hào có khôn general, lò có yên tàu nhé, bánh mua bánh sử ô tàu rong hẹn, thia bánh lúa khứ nhé trâu co, lúc xí hậu chỉ tỏ lên từ cá chi hù trâu tụ ở xa để video nó trâu co do nữ thả thiên lò cổng trâu bê nú nó.
Federal level. So there are words like marijuana, cannabis, adult use cannabis, and hemp. And what the heck are all those things? Well, they're all the same plant. So when I talk about the hemp program, and Office of Cannabis Management talks about the adult use program, we're talking about the same plant. The difference between those, and it's very important for you if you're going to get involved in this, to understand what those differences are. Marijuana federally is the prohibited form of cannabis, okay? Adult use cannabis is now defined in Minnesota as cannabis. It is not legal federally. So for those of you that would get a license eventually to possess, 2 pounds or 2 ounces in your person, and you try to go across the Wisconsin border, that doesn't work. So the law works within the state of Minnesota. Hemp is defined both federally and within the state the same way. And what it is a designation of the cannabis plant that does not produce one cannabinoid, and I don't want to nerd out on all of you and use all these words, but cannabinoids are really what it's all about when it comes down to adult use cannabis. And the one I'm referring to is THC is the acronym, tetrahydrocannabinol. Hemp is defined as 0.3% THC or less by dry weight, and adult use cannabis in Minnesota would be anything above that. At the federal level, anything above 0.3% THC is a Schedule 1 controlled substance, and it's a felony. Now that may change over time, but while we're still in this period of uncertainty at the federal level, it is important to understand those distinctions. You can grow hemp right now. You can grow hemp if you don't get an adult use license. And I'm not trying to pull you away or advertise for the program by any means, but I just want you to be aware that you can get involved in cannabis growing right now as long as you grow hemp. And like I said, many cannabis growers, or many Hmong growers are doing that. And when I've talked with Hmong farmers, especially that have reached out to me about this new law, they seem to be confused that the only way you can grow cannabis is if you grow adult use. And many of them, when I've asked them, what products do you want to produce? It's had nothing to do with cannabinoids or anything to get you high, or be in a brownie or a flower smoked or any of that. They have mentioned that their ancestors and their elders have grown hemp for fiber production. That is hemp. And so I just want to point that out because I want to make it clear, although it's probably confusing, but Senator Herr, I can't answer all the questions tonight, but I make it my commitment to work with you and this community as much as we have to. The other thing I want to say is a good friend of ours, Jim Erickson, is in the room. One way for you to learn about this, because hemp growing and adult use growing, if you're growing for cannabinoid production, are identical. Growing for fiber and grain is more of an outside endeavor, which most of you are probably familiar with. Growing adult use cannabis is going to really be focused on inside, and that's why, as Marone and has said, there's a lot of need for capital in this business. But I would reach out to some of the organizations. Jim, can you help me? I know you guys changed your name. It's Cannabis.
Thank you, Tony. I'm the past chairman of the Minnesota Cannabis-Qha.
Yes.
Co-op is very important. So you could look up on your phones right now, mncannabis.coop, and you can see that group. And if you are interested in getting in at the low level, being a member of the co-op where you are an owner, not in the business. So Tony and the commissioner have been very helpful to those of us who grew. I grew in 2020, so I have a little experience. I got started when Representative Vang asked me to help the Hmong farmers back in 2018. So I said, why not? Why don't I grow? And I grew a little bit. And I'll tell you about my experience if you want that later on. But anyway, mncannabis.coop. You might be interested in joining. It'd be an easy entryway, not very expensive, but you get a lot of folks who are in your shoes who want to be in the business. And that group is good to be a member of, and the department and the new cannabis office will be very helpful. So happy to answer questions later.
Thank you, Jim. And I would say the co-op is good because they have a lot of hemp growers that are going to move over into the adult use space, and they already know how to. I mean, they have setups for growing adult use cannabis already. Some of them are looking for partnerships, so that can always help you get started too. So it's well worth talking to them because they can tell you about the trials and tribulations they've had trying to start a cannabis farm. It's not as easy as everybody thinks or everybody makes it out to be. The other association I would look up is the Minnesota Industrial Hemp, not cooperative, Minnesota Industrial Hemp Association. David Ladd is in charge of that, and he represents some farmers and growers too that again, are searching the same way you all are, how do I get involved in this, and what's it cost, and what kind of machinery do I need, and what type of, agronomic, ideas do I have to think about to make my crops successful. And you can certainly always reach out to us, and we're working closely with the Office of Cannabis Management too. So hopefully the confusion over what is hemp, marijuana, or adult use cannabis will get less and less as the years go on. So with that, I really want to leave time for questions and hear from you all, but I just wanted to introduce who we are. And if you want to find us, just put in Minnesota Hemp Program, and it'll bring you right to the MDA's Department of Ag's hemp program, and you'll have all our contact info.
I just want to sum up what you just say in Hmong. Soอย่างคือไปพันติดเซนนะเราจะยิงตัดเว็บไซต์ต่างๆเป็นท่อนนั้นหมดไปลูกเอาลูกของหูไปลูกของหูเนาะตัวนั้นอย่าไม่สั่งป้องจีไม่จะเลยมองว่าลูกของหูเลยลูกOffice of Cannabis Management OCM มันเป็นคนดีนะเป็นคนตันเตาดีแต่ดี The website is DEED, right? Minnesota DEED, DEED in Minnesota. That will come out on your website. And then Department of Agriculture, make Google นี่ตัดเลยฮะแต่ไม่ว่าใช้โปรเจกต์ grant นะ Commissioner ต้องหาโปรโมทจาก grant จะ beginning farmer หมดอย่างเตาอย่างผมเลยอ่ะไม่แต่ปีหรือ farming นะแต่พอยิ่งหมดอย่างเตาเขาคือไปจีถูกเป้าสุดท้ายไปจี apply แต่โปรเจกต์ grant ฮะ and คืออย่าแต่ไม่ apply จีเตานะแต่ไม่ต้องหาจุดกูเป็นสัมเป็นหมักลงกิจใจจะขอคือพอยิ่งสังกัดไปจะต้นในน้องมองเตาจาก grant ฮะนั่นนะแต่ฝิ่งเตาไปจะต้นในจีโช apply จาก grant จาก grant เขาคือ commissioner หาจาก grant มาจีจะไม่มีไอจีจะผ่านเลยจะนี่โปรผ่านจะสอบฮะone level แต่ไม่ใช่ผมจะไม่ qualify ไม่มา apply แต่ตัวต้นสายมีอย่างจ้างผมนะ
cú tao là hài mà chẳng tao đã lấy thái là cú tao là cho có presentation đó tất nhiên mà có lan luận nó chỉ giờ dùng gì giờ cú giờ để uo là dùng giờ xí hỏi xí nhiệt trên tao nè chỉ có nói chỉ tao giờ lấy từ lời uo là tao cho một xa mà lấy uo để chỉ có nói mà cho lấy tôi khép ấy thì làm mình sau đó mua là cái có lấy từ sao bao giờ họ tôi nung cho nó cho uoเขาเชิญจอมาจะสารต่อเด็กนะเสียจะเขาในเซนเตอร์ฝั่งยันนี่ชุดตัวแค่รู้เชิญชิตาเด็กก็เทียร์ไปเจาะเดี๋ยวเขาลามินสระหรือมั่วเลยไอ้ก็ไปจอเนี่ยจีกงเจก็รอแล้วสับเป้าวัวแล้วก็มุนนงเนี่ยก็มุนนงจอหนอชี้จอหน้าเจ้าวัวแล้วที่หายซอไลเซนหายซอเยอะกี่จอมาแต่นอแล้วมั่วเชิญป้าเราไปเจาะมงแล้วที่สับเป้าเราเขามุนนงเลยนะเสียมันนอเลยตัวเลยเนาะนะเสียcũng cà xé mà, ông lại tôi sao chỉ cà xé mà. Ô, còn mà ông lại chỉ nhiệt chỉ hay na, yếu uống mà phình mông hết na, ông làm còn mà yan lan lụa na, phải mất thả thì yan lan lụa na, giờ cụ bao thì cho, bây giờ non mà cụ sao cả, bây mông một cho cả ta nó thì bây mua bây tao nó ta họ chỉ còn nói giờ cái lụa, lấy tụi chơi cho tụi chỉ chơi cho chỉ tao giờ còn nói giờ hai cái uo tao bánh nào mà cụ hai chỉ tao đó chỉ hai cái giờ lấy tiền mua bánh xì lấy mua chờ shipa chờ kia tên là uo tao đó chỉ mà giờ hai cái jellyเอาละหมกให้เจลีจอยวัวกับเตานอเลยอยู่เชื้อสารมา lá chỉ tao nhớ nó như mong ôn nên nhớ mà in linh đó nè chắc có nó mà sau đó tao tao vừa kế hả cú hun dài nè sỉnh va chịu trả này mà
các tôi nói là sẽ là thử là giờ nó chứ nó bây giờ giờ tổ chức chạy bây giờ giờ kiểu lại sẽ cho mong nhớ mình để số ta cho mang có tao là chả
cú yên tao là hai thiên đó là cú tôi từ nó giờ cú tôi sắp bao hai thiên rồi à nó giờ khi cho chạy đi chả thế giờ mua cái ba đi chả cú thế đi tôm lông ya ở đây mình là cái hai sắp bao cho ya
ก็ยอหาเลยจังก็ต้นหนอจะหนูจื้อหนอนะก็หาตังหนอลายเซ็นหนอเลยจังเขาเถอะก็ยอหาเลยจังจนโจจนน่ะจนจีกันยังต่างว่าตัวเจ๊พวกจีตู้หนอนะก็ยอหาเลยจังเราพวกแต่เป็นย้อนเหมือนสุดตาเราแต่เสือเคสจอมาละ
กูจะให้จุดเลยให้ตีเคสจอมาเลยแต่สิเลยมั่วเลยจอเกจใจน่าหลอกเฮียโซเปียเปียน่าเลยตัว interesting to be a farmer เราไปตัว follow เลยจะน่าไกด์ไลน์จะเกใจอ่ะ
ตรงช้านะโอโจนะ
โอโจ
ดูแฟชั่นอย่าไปมองเขาเชยว่าหมวกเขาเยอะตอนรงชับเลยไปหมวกชัวๆหอเขาเยอะอย่าก็สาวตัวจะเขาเยอะว่ารงเที่ยวหอก็รู้เจตัวโดนติดดูแฟชั่นไปเขาเชยอย่าย่อโดนติดสักเกย์ University Avenue West เที่ยวแค่ไปตัวสาวตัวอย่าเจ้าชี้อีจ่ออี下ชี้เจ้าชี้อีจ่ออี下ชี้
If you want to be successful, but you don't want to spend any money, then you have come to the right place. Simple Online will share 70% of Alibaba, Amazon, eBay, Facebook, Google, and YouTube's income with you for free. How can we get their money and share it with you? Absolutely, we cannot steal their money. But what if we can take their users, like buyers, sellers, and advertisers? Does that mean yes, we can take their money and share it with you? SimpleOnline.com is a site that combines all search engine, social media, e-commerce, and many others, like advertising, books, courses, engine, estate, karaoke, movies, music, travel buddy, travel location, and many others. You can search for web, video, people, image, info, live, wholesale, and shopping. You can sell live, offer live, and auction live. And every time you and your team sign up, sell something, purchase something, advertise something, or post something to their social media journal, you'll make money from it. We are the best opportunities of the 21st century and will build legacies for you. Join us by using the following referral ID who's sharing this video with you. SimpleOnline.com.
Ý của nó có hà ta đầu tư mấy trò chơi nhớ thì trên lớn mà lên lâu em mà lên trò chơi nó hà mà mấy trò tổ hà vấn đề sao chỉ trò chơi chỉ tao lâu có bộ sáu hà ta yếu lâu nó giờ từ đầu tư mà lên
hà trò chơi mà tốt lâu xong thằng nó là nên gọi bé là ok chứ họ bảo thà trò chơi nó mà trò chơi chỉ có cho tôi này phải chơi một phải chỗ tàu cho trả lại sân nó nữa nè chứ giờ là bộ sản chỉ họ nhỏ cái trái mình chỉ是但是嘛，就在路的印钞像那个杯就但是的杯印是在这里印是到个慢哈比有晒比我对慢的那嘛个别的去做个trái了呢但是嘛，我主要被路城市，我只说的根本做 Wisconsin 中，当然根本做 Wisconsin 干讲，我们做 Wisconsin 做trái了哈呢这个说我到后呢是到后呢是。họ cứ bây giờ khai cho tôi này tôi apply cho license nó thì giờ nên có chi họ cứ bây sáng sai so sai cho tôi này phải chờ tôi này chọn nhẹ họ cái sáng tàu cho làm lỗ nữa mà nó thì bây sáng khai lúc họ trồng nó cho lúc chi linh đủ xong nó nè thì họ nói họ cứ lấy cái deadline là mà nó bị sự thẳng thì cái vì ta cho ông can nó hành trang mà tụ giang tụ dỗ hả nè để cho hậu lử lên cho số tôi này tôi lên nó mà ta tôi chỉ cho cụ做好lử但是cụ ta giờ cụ chỉ để chỉ một họ cứ community cho cha nó nè bây giờ thì chỉnh to bố nó để lưỡi xong bố mà ô nó bây giờ thì cô ta cha bé mong tuần chi cho con trồng nó để bé họ ô để ý cái trồng ha cho họ trồng đã bố tôi phòng lô bò đó chỉ mỗi từ tuần này mong cái hồ hát nữa nè chị giờ này cô ta tàu thay ô họ nó nè chị lúc nó sẽ chơi哇！我撞到做唱的和 Facebook 这是嘛，说在哪里说在都不真高哈呢，说到的可能一下被猫砂被抽呢，对，你看可能只要叫被猫路内么一个做多了把，我一做多了把容下了呢。nó cũng cho càng kỳ lệ đó, nó cũng cho làm càng kỳ lệ khó cũng chơi nó mà khó cũng chơi nó mà giờ luôn càng cho lú á giờ có ô chỉ hàng square feet cho căn hộ nó để cho license chỉ một limit nè, ok đó là có ô rồi giờ có ô cho lú cho bộ mẹ sổ nữa, thì cho có chi square feet một chỗ bê cho square feet nè cho nên cho tổ la bán luôn nè ok để cho tổ la bán luônคือbê cho square feet nó để bao nhiêu nên có chi cho lại license nên có chi nó để cho nhau cho khuôn sản nhẹ nè chỉ sai ta có nhau khuôn sản nhẹ cái sản nhẹ á bây giờ cái cho nhau khuôn chủ cho nên sản nhẹ nhau hắn bây giờ để hai chỉ thằng đó có chuyện cứ đi số thời công cái cho nhà chỉ giàu hắn này bây giờ để mua số ta bao nhiêu nên có chi lại license cho cái ô tổ la bán luôn này bé cho square feet nữa mà cú lúc sáng chơi mà khi là chơi cần có bé một chi lu giờ mong giờ chăng là hai giờ rong để giờ giảng cho chi lu họ là để yên rong lại rồi yên rong nên lại cho họ cái tổ la bán luôn để cái tàu sang cái tàu ô làng lộ của chơi cái chơi chạy hát nó thì họ cho cái chỉ hàng square feet nó để dùng lại cho nhau trả lá nè, một bên mông mà cho micro business ha, hay cho gì cho tạo chế sự nó bên mông để cho họ lưu để cho họ cho license nó để nó cứ chỉ tại sao nó cho lại tự cả hạt để nó chỉ mua họ limit nó mà
giờ lên nó cũng đủ có ít kho hạt đã mấy chục trái nữa, mà mấy hạt đã mấy expansion, cho cái này cái ý là đại gia tăng lưu mua xà tinh mì tên đó mấy mua cho họ chịu tự tăng.
Yên lưỡi tăng nữa, tại sao thâu vô trong tăng nó để cho họ để yên chỉ một chỉ là chỉ là nhớ cho mình xem mình style có trâu chỉ nó để cho yên lưỡi tăng nữa là ha tận đây nó có chỉ trâu chỉ gì là ha,แต่是古包的蒙龙山车嘛，只要搞好，蒙龙山车也搞叫公叫龙对。เขาโน้กูจะเลยโฟกัสโอลังโลจะเขาโน้กูจะพูดแต่ East Side Cannabis Producer Forum นั่นแต่ยังจัวจะตัวละป้าจะคงจะลงนะจะนู่นนู่นลูกหาพายหาจูเกี่ยวเล่าเต้แต่กูจะเจอกับ Office of Cannabis Management ถ้ากูเจอ Department of Agriculture ตัวห้าตอนนั้นกูเจอดีตัวห้าดีใน Department of Employment and Economic Development นะแต่พออย่าลูกของกูคือใจยากตัวนี้โอลังโลฮะนะchị giờ cho cái họ ta cũng chỉ muốn nhà nó cũng chạy họ từ đây đi từ tổ nó hát nữa nè, chưa chăng, chưa chăng, tôi chọn đâu.
Ở chỗ cái mấy tiêu sai cũ nhá đồ hú hải mong TV, số sự nú nó chỉ cho cũng hà cho là một sầu lên nó thầu cơ nó cha sa hạt ta bé ý dụng sai sốt lờ mẹ cho lên cho tự nhiên chỉ cái nó cá nhau rồi, bé mà đã cá sinh chỉ lô lì lô xe hở, cú giờ thâu nhị hở, ở trong đầu.